Hey there, Internet. Welcome to the Hard On Gear channel, where I discuss and review my use and abuse knives and gear. Whoops, I may have been a little too hard on the poor Mora Kansbol. While it looks kind of okay right now, there might be a bit of an issue if I give the blade a little bit of a wiggle. I may have sort of broke this while batoning. I'll cut some video in of what I was doing with this thing when I broke it. It's about $70 Canadian, I think is what I paid for this, so not a huge deal. And to be honest, I'm surprised I don't break more of these knives the last couple years, as I've had a wider selection to play around with. I still managed to do quite a bit of dumb stuff, but yeah, this was the first huge major failure of a blade that I've had in quite a long time. I can already hear you people in the comments, although feel free to go down below and let me know what you think about the whole non-full tang versus full tang thing. But this is going to be the big discussion here. If this were a full tang knife, would this have happened? Probably not. And I can already hear some others saying, what about the Garberg? That's exactly what I thought when this happened. What about the Garberg? I can't say that I think the Garberg would be susceptible to the breakage that this thing experienced. Full tang all the way through, from the butt or the pommel of the knife to the tip, whereas this is more of a probably a rat tail, or it's some kind of a tapered tang. Pick this up without hurting myself. There we go. But as you can see looking here, this part is where it naturally thins down to the even thinner area, and that is where the breakage occurred. I'll post a whole separate video about this shorter winter excursion that I did yesterday, day before, a couple days ago anyways, when this video comes out on the Monday evening. During the processing of my firewood, I had a pretty aggressively knotty piece of wood, and I was using a stick to baton, through that piece of wood. And as I was rocking back and forth, I ended up in a position where the knife was stuck in a deep enough part of the log where I couldn't get access to hit the tip of the blade or the blade over here to dislodge it from the log. So I ended up using the handle, or I guess hitting against the handle, which with a non-full tang knife, you start to wonder if you're doing any damage. I'll get to the CRKT chance in hell and why that's not a good thing to do to a non-full tang knife. But this one in particular snapped when I was going to dislodge it from the log. Basically the knife blade stayed in the log and the handle sort of, flopped off on the ground. But yeah, not a big deal. Actually kind of fun to see the limitations of some gear, because I have been a little bit nicer to my stuff, or more so that I'm buying better gear that can stand some of the abuse that I put it up to. But the Kansbol, as I'd mentioned in the previous videos, the reason I wanted to take this thing out was to find this exact limitation. It's a way more versatile blade, and it's got that little bit of a thinner, almost full flat grind where the main scandy kind of tapers off in the top half of the blade. It's definitely slicier, like by a long shot, and it holds a hell of a good edge, but it's not as thick. Other than that, there's not a whole lot of difference. A little bit more of a rubberized, grippy handle, and a little bit lighter for, probably half the weight actually, if not more. It's quite heavy, the Garberg, quite sturdy in the hand, but without a doubt, that extra blade stock plus the full tang of the knife, you're getting a way more durable of a blade. It doesn't even feel like it's possible for this to have snapped the way that the Kansbol did in this situation. Now the other thing I'm realizing, same as when I was chopping away with the Chance and Hell Bolo, which I'll do a separate video on, but spoiler alert, there might have been a little bit of a there we go. Yeah, maybe a little bit of an issue with this flying out of my hand as I was chopping some firewood. As a result, less so from the firewood processing and more from me, again, batoning with this thing with some larger logs that I couldn't get the Kansbol through. But this has been really, really good, really productive, because I'm getting that much more of a full understanding. Can I get this back in there without hurting myself? Yeah, I can. The other thing you can do, I'll say really quickly, is put some paracord or something through here. I'm not sure how it's going to affect the grip, because this is pretty molded to my hand already, but I'll see about attaching that in a couple places, top and bottom. See if I can get this handle nice and securely mounted to some extent back to the blade. Again, non-full tang with something with a full handle. I'm really looking at the SE Youngless. Well, hopefully that'll live up to the kind of stuff that I'm doing with this thing. But the value of a big heavy chopper, a little bit bigger than a Bowie knife, for this kind of bushcraft stuff, I'm a big fan just from my last few little excursions. It can collect firewood, it can do just about everything. Well, and take the Lynn Thompson Cold Steel founder, and basically, you steal his line of you can do everything a small knife can do with a big knife, you can't do everything a big knife can do with a small knife. And while a better bushcrafter could probably make it happen with something like a 4-inch Mora, which most of them do, I'm really leaning more towards something Bowie size or closer to this. Not for everyday carry or anything like that, just more for if I was going into the woods for some kind of a specific camping or bush task. But with these two tools, and well, a multi-tool wouldn't hurt either, you could get pretty much anything done. The saw, actually, now that I say that, some kind of a folding saw that's silky will come in so handy. But instead of using the silky or another cutting tool or sawing tool to cut myself out when I got this knife blade jammed in that log, because I mean I could have burned the log if I would have had a better fire, and well, yeah, again, that video will explain more of that. I could have went and got the axe out of my car and split the log. I just kind of wanted to mess around, and you'll see in that picture I used the Azula 2. The Azula 2 is a thicker knife. I wedged it on top and then continued to kind of like hit and pry the knife blade out carefully without trying to hurt myself, which I'm lucky I didn't hurt myself in this whole the breakage or anything like that. Especially by yourself in the woods, like, just adds an extra element to like not wanting to get injured. Even like nicking your thumb, you nick an artery or something, you start bleeding out a lot. You just never know what's going to happen. But yeah, eventually I somehow, without hurting myself at all, got the knife blade out. Yeah, here it is. But that's how the breakage occurred. That is probably the limitations of what you can do with a thinner, non-full tang knife like this. The Mora companions are a rat tail tang, and a lot of people have pretty good things to say about them for a $20 fixed blade. And really, good luck finding a better knife for about, you know, $10 or $20. But people claim to have snapped these. I've never seen it, but now I'm definitely understanding how that might occur. The Condor Pterosaur, full tang, very similar to the Kansbol in almost every way, except that it is a little bit heavier, a little bit thicker blade stock, a little bit thicker behind the bevel on the Scandi grind. It's definitely not as slicey, but it is full tang and way sturdier. And I do not, once again, feel like this would have had the same kind of breakage, much like the Garberg, as I experienced with this. But I think this has kind of helped me solidify my fixation with full tang and getting more towards only purchasing things with full tang, because as I picked this up in the military when I first got in with basic training, didn't stay in for long, wasn't even worth really talking about, but I ended up picking this up with the idea of it being a pretty decent little camp knife and something to throw maybe on a piece of kit or a vest, not as a combat knife again, but just while you're doing the bushcraft stuff. Anyways, that is not a reliable enough knife to want to put in a situation like that, in my opinion, just based on what I did with this. I've done way worse stuff with blades that are as tough or even less apparently tough than this. Stuff happens, and it was also fairly cold. That's another thing to mention. It wasn't minus 20 Celsius, was it like it was that previous trip that I had done, but it did go from around 7 degrees Celsius to around 0 degrees, so freezing, and that happened pretty quickly within probably an hour or two. So I don't know if that temperature change to the cold after affected it that much. I don't know if it really could. If you guys know more about that, please comment down below. Also, if you want to like the video, that's a good way to help the channel out. Appreciate that, as always. I guess we'll get all these Moras and the Pterosaur off the table. I'm thinking the Garberg is going to get some action in the near future. The sheath, like I said, isn't retaining it quite as well as it had been with the Kansbol. For some reason, that handle was a little bit grippy. Maybe it is just the grippier rubber or polymer or plastic, whatever they're using, but this doesn't want to hold in there quite as well, and I can if I shake hard enough, yeah, get that to fly out of there. But for the most part, never having that issue, but I won't feel comfortable jumping in my sleeping bag with this knife on my hip like I would maybe with that, because that's the last thing you need trying to survive, is rolling around your sleeping bag and accidentally gutting yourself with a 4-inch blade. See you on next Monday's upload, or we'll see you on one of those videos popping up on the side panel right about now. This is Hard on Gear Channel, signing off.